If you missed last week's episode of the Bottomless Pit Podcast, it was all about little-known foreign language films that are a must-see. Today's episode is a chat between myself and Foley about the best and worst English language movies that we have ever come across. We cover all genres and talk about everything from huge Hollywood blockbusters down to lesser-known films that you may want to go and unearth after hearing us talk about them. We are also interested in hearing your best and worst film nominations, particularly obscure ones, so if you have any you think that we and the rest of the podcast world should know about, then link up with us on social media. Search the Bottomless Pit Podcast on Facebook or find us on Twitter at the BP Podcast. And as always, you could send us an email if you prefer to bottomlesspitpodcast@gmail.com. If you're enjoying the show, please consider subscribing to us on whichever platform you use to get your podcasts, whether it's on iTunes, Stitcher, Acast, Google Play Music, SoundCloud, YouTube, wherever. Your subscriptions not only mean that you get kept up to date with new episodes as soon as they're released, you're also supporting the show because the bigger our subscribed audience becomes, the further the reaches of the Bottomless Pit will grow. If you're super keen, rating and reviewing the show is another amazing and free way to show extra support, but if you can't be arsed with all that stuff, that's absolutely fine. We just hope you continue to enjoy our podcast. This is episode 32 of the Bottomless Pit Podcast.
The Bottomless Pit. Find us on social media and everywhere you get podcasts.
So, I've never, and this, I'm expecting some feedback, and I'm hoping for some feedback, and absolutely slate me if you want. That's fine, but I've never seen the Shawshank Redemption. I've never seen Schindler's List. I think I might have seen Pulp Fiction, but if I have, I've only seen it once and I was young, and I've never seen The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. They're big ones apparently, and I just haven't seen them.
Yeah, they are big ones, man, and any of those Stephen King adaptations or Tarantino's, they're just amazing films. They're really, really good. And there are so many cult references to those films in everything you see and hear in the media around you that probably you don't even notice or you won't know that they're from Shawshank and from Pulp Fiction stuff, you know? Yeah, you're missing out, man. You definitely need to go see them.
Yeah, I think if I was to go in order of watching them, I'd go Pulp Fiction first, and then probably The Shawshank Redemption, and then Schindler's List.
Why would you do it like that?
I think I just definitely because I do like Tarantino. I don't love Tarantino, don't get me wrong. I'm not a massive Tarantino buff or anything, but I do like a lot of his stuff, so I'd watch Pulp Fiction first. So I might do that. I know one of my friends, she's in a book club with her rugby team, so they do a book a month. I might do that and watch specifically choose one of the top. I can go through the top 20 and watch the ones that I haven't seen, one every fortnight or something.
Yeah, people do that with books as well. They'll look at the top 100 best-selling books of all time and they'll just sort of try and get through them all. So I think that's probably a good idea.
Yeah, that book thing, it's why I bought, I don't have it, damn it, it's at home. I'll get it at Christmas. Oh yeah, I'm going home for Christmas. If anyone is wondering, I'll be in London and for a day either side of my time at home in Westport. Woo! So if you're around, hit me up, and or if you're around either of those places, hit me up, and we'll meet up for a drink. I'm more a comedy kind of person or an action, which is, oh my god, so basic. But I grew up on kind of Jim Carrey in the 90s and stuff, so the two Ace Venturas and The Mask and Dumb and Dumber. I love those movies, and Spaceballs, which is, if you haven't seen it, go and watch it. It's a spoof of Star Wars and Star Trek, those types of movies. It's hilarious. I love the Lord of the Rings movies. I really love the book, which I actually read after the movies. It's one of the only times I've done that. Read the book after the movie, and yeah, so love the book, love the movies. Love all the Marvel, the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I really, really enjoy. I could actually watch those movies over and over again. I'm just trying to think lesser known ones that I'd really like. I guess there'd be some of the Irish ones. The Guard was really good with Brendan Gleeson. In Bruges, probably not quite lesser known, but in certain parts of the world for sure, that was really, really good. Again, Brendan Gleeson and Colin Farrell in that. They're two hitmen that have to go to Bruges because a hit went wrong and they have to hide out in Bruges. And Bruges is shit, according to them. I've never been, so I won't judge. But the movie doesn't really help. So that's a dark comedy. Like, there's some really dark things through that, but it's very, very funny. I really like that movie. And the follow-on to that, it wasn't a sequel at all, but same actor, Colin Farrell, and same director, I think it was. They made Seven Psychopaths, which I had to watch a couple of times to get, but I actually really liked that as well.
Yeah, it's interesting because you started off by saying like the Jim Carreys and stuff that you grew up on, which is exactly the same for me. And then you went on to Lord of the Rings, and I couldn't be further away from agreement on that because I can't get into it at all. And I did the same as you. I watched all 3 films and then read the book, which, you know, I think gives me the right to say that I don't like those things because I did give them a chance. You know, it's just I'm so opposite to you on that. And likewise with the superhero films, like I like the Batman ones, like the new Batmans.
Yeah, okay.
As in, when I say the new Batmans, I mean Christian Bale, you know?
Yeah, not Ben Affleck.
I feel like all those superheroes, that it's the same film over and over again, you know? I just can't get into it. What is it that you like that draws you to them particularly?
I don't know. I think it's just it's easy watching. You know what I mean? You don't have to think too much, and that's sometimes, probably about 60-70% of the time, that's why I watch movies. I just need to tune out, I need to switch my brain off, and like something's in front of me and they're going to tell me what happens, and I can relax while I'm watching it. I don't have to think too hard about it.
But that's what Jim Carrey's there for, man. That's why you watch those movies.
Exactly. But yeah, there's just, and I do like as I said, like the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, it's all connected, which I find good. It's like watching a series, but it's in movie form and it's insanely extended. One of them, I'm just again flicking down through this list, and one of the ones I have seen that's insanely old is Casablanca. I don't know if you've ever seen it.
I've never seen it, but obviously I've heard of it and I know what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. It's really good. People might be put off if you're listening to this and you're put off by the age of it and it's black and white. You should watch it. It's a really, really good movie, and it does it holds up well. It stands the test of time.
Have you ever seen Citizen Kane? Because that's another one that's often heralded as being the best film ever. And that's
I haven't.
Sort of 1940s, I think, maybe earlier, black and white film.
I haven't, and it's not in the top 50 on IMDb, which is bizarre.
Yeah, I don't know. That seems odd. I mean, I hear, you know, professional movie critics hailing it as the best thing of all time, you know.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, I have a good friend of mine at home. He's working in like TV and he wants to get into movies and stuff. He has a master's in film studies. He's tried to get me to watch some of those, and I'm just like, I'll get round to it. You know, if I'm ever looking for like a bit of an obscure movie reference, not like off the chains, like bizarre, like, you know, modern art is just a square painted on a wall, not that bizarre. Just a different kind of movie suggestion. I'll ask him, and he normally comes up with some good stuff. One I want to mention actually now, kind of just thinking about it, and one of the movies that I would watch over and over again, like kind of dramatic one, is Good Will Hunting.
Yes.
It just kind of popped into my head there. I love that movie.
That's incredible.
Robin Williams, Matt Damon, like everyone in that is so good. If you haven't seen it, go and watch it. Like, do. If you're listening to this right now and you've not seen it, pause it, come back to us after you've watched Good Will Hunting.
Give a brief summary of what it's about, mate, because it is fantastic.
So Matt Damon's character, he's a kind of Southie in Boston kind of thing, and he's working in construction, and he does another job at MIT as a janitor at night, but he's actually also a genius. But he ends up needing help from a psychologist to find direction in life. But he goes through so many psychologists because, like, he knows he's intelligent, but he just doesn't give a shit. He thinks he's happy in his life, even though he could be doing so much more. So eventually, you know, he goes through so many psychologists, as I said, but eventually Robin Williams, who's a bit of a troubled psychologist himself, he's able to connect with them and helps him kind of find his way. You know, it's one of those where it's they both help each other in the end and that kind of thing. I'm not doing it justice. I am terrible at describing movies.
No, it's fine, because you've explained, you know, it's about the relationships between the psychologist and Matt Damon's character, and you haven't given anything away there, which is good. The only thing I would add to that is that it's the only film, or the only other film, I should say, in which I've heard the song Afternoon Delight. You know that they sing in Anchorman?
Yeah, I've forgotten about that actually.
And like I'd only heard that in Anchorman, and then I watched Good Will Hunting, and that's the song that plays over the credits. So I've just watched this incredibly
That's right, yeah.
Deep and touching and thoughtful drama, and then at the end, all I can think of is those Burks singing "Afternoon Delight" in their office with Ron Burgundy.
Yeah. I have to say as well, it's one of like it's where the phrase, which originally came from World War One, apparently something to do with toffee apples, but it's where it got huge, and I think it's probably the first one in a big movie. It's the whole "How do you like them apples?" Which is funny. I just like that scene.
It's great.
You know, just knocking on the windows like, "Hey, do you like apples?" And then he holds up the girl's phone number to this other guy who was trying to talk her up, and he's like, "How do you like them apples?"
I think what we'll do is we'll, of all the films we mentioned, the ones you've mentioned and I've mentioned, we'll get trailers up and we'll tweet them. So if you go follow us on Twitter at the BP Podcast, you'll be able to find all the trailers up there.
Sounds good. I'm trying to think, is there like, there's probably like, as soon as we finish this, you know, there's going to be more that I can think of, obviously. But we'll tweet them that way, you know, if you get a few as well. Should we go back to Jim Carrey, actually? Have you ever seen Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind?
Yes, that is fast. That's awesome as well, because that's him in like a semi. Well, it's a serious role. It's semi-funny, and it's different for him, but it's perfect for him too, right?
It is, yeah. So if you haven't seen it, it's him and Kate Winslet. I can't even describe it without actually giving away anything at all. So just go and watch it. It's bizarre. Don't watch it though if you're like lying in bed or if you might fall asleep or anything, because there is kind of some dream stuff and some kind of strange stuff like that. And I did that once. I think I was preparing for a night shift at work, and I went and lay down for a couple of hours, and I had that on in the background, and I was kind of half watching it and half sleeping or whatever, and I had the most fucked up dreams.
Yeah, I bet that must have been the same as just taking a load of drugs and going to sleep. That's
not quite that. I assume I've not done that, but. But it was really good. It's a really, really good movie. You should watch it.
Yeah, it's so kind of surreal and esoteric and trippy, and it's also got Elijah Wood in it as well. He's got a small part. It's
That's right.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's really strange and original.
Big time. One of the ones that it's not. I can't even find it on like the IMDb list. The Town, it's called.
Okay.
It's not in the top 250. It's Ben Affleck, Jeremy Renner is in it. It's based in Boston, and it's about guys that rob a bank, and they actually they take a hostage, and then they end up getting to know the hostage. I'm not doing it justice. It's awesome though. It's a kind of a crime thriller type of thing. It's really, really good. It's really worth watching. Yeah. Have you ever like remembered or had an impression of a movie that you might have watched when you were young, or you remember it from when you were young, like seen a trailer or something, and then watched it like 15, 20 years later and just been like, oh my God, this is terrible? Or vice versa.
Probably. I can't think off the top of my head. Although, I always so this is going to put a lot of people either one side of the fence or the other. I've always liked Adam Sandler's films. And I went through a phase when I was growing up of I would just buy all of his DVDs. Like, I was trying to get all of his... I just wanted to own them all, you know? And I bought one of his earliest films called Going Overboard, and it's just one of the worst things, like one of the worst pieces of cinema you will ever see. It's not funny. It's not interesting. Like, the storyline is shit. It's really bad acting, and it's just a waste of time. And so I think it might have been his first ever film, you know. It was when he was really just getting started.
Yeah.
Because I like his things like Big Daddy and more lately things like Grown Ups and stuff. I really like those films. I know a lot of people hate him and hate everything he does. Obviously, The Waterboy is a classic for me, but
yeah, Waterboy and Happy Gilmore.
Going Overboard is horrendous.
Fair enough. I will never watch it then. I will actively avoid it in my life. But one thing as well, guys, like if you have any of those kind of movies, or if you have any movie recommendations for us based on what we've talked about. I never answered my own question earlier about like the odd genre one or whatever. I love Across the Universe. Anyone who knows me, if I'm ever talking about a movie, like something that you mightn't, it's like, don't knock it till you try it kind of thing. It's across the universe. It's a musical movie based on the Beatles music, but it's so well done, and like the music in it is phenomenal, and I just love that movie.
Brilliant. That sounds really cool. What does it follow their career, or what does it? What's the story?
No. It's actually, when I describe it, right, it's going to sound incredibly crap. It's a love story based around like using the Beatles music as storytelling methods, if that makes sense. So like they fit the music into a part of the story because it makes sense. Yeah, like it's, again, as I said, it sounds crap when I describe it, but it is so good. The visual effects in it are amazing. There's no huge names as like main actors in it, or at least, you know, they weren't when they did it. But at the same time, like Bono's in it. Eddie Izzard is in it. Strange to compare those two names like right after each other, but and things like that. Like there's a few random. What's his name? Shit, this is gonna annoy me now. He sings a really good version of "Come Together." Oh, it's gonna annoy me. Damn it. He's in it anyway. He sings in it as well. That guy, you know. But it's really, really good. If you guys have it's only an hour and a half to 2 hours. I can't remember exactly. It's so good. Oh, and speaking of actually music and just big names, have you ever seen August Rush?
No.
Okay, go watch it. It's about like a child prodigy musician, and he's an orphan, and his parents end up finding, like, Jonathan Rhys-Meyers is in it, and I didn't think he could sing, but he can. Kerry Russell is in it, who I loved in Scrubs. She was only in like 1 or 2 episodes, but I loved her in that. And Robin Williams is in it. It's definitely one of his lesser known movies, but it is so good, and there's such good music in it, and it's just a really good story too.
Oh, fantastic. If we're going to go about films with an amazing soundtrack, just for a second, I've got to shout out like the sort of biopics, you know, of Johnny Cash and Ray Charles.
Yes,
so Walk the Line and Ray, where Joaquin Phoenix plays Johnny Cash. Like, I mean, a lot of people have seen this film. It's not like a hidden gem or anything, but it is amazing. It's really good. The soundtrack's incredible. Johnny Cash's story generally is just fascinating. It's really interesting. It's sad, but it's interesting. Big time. Likewise for Ray. So Jamie Foxx, who is just a prodigy. You know, he's a stand-up comedian, an insanely good actor, and an insanely good singer. And he's just unbelievably good as Ray. And again, the soundtrack, of course, is just incredible. Yeah, those are like, as far as music goes, those are my 2 films that come into my mind when I think of that, you know? Yeah.
Any of those, like, if any of those biopics, if you like the person that they're about or the band or whatever, like, you're going to like the music.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Without a doubt. Like, Rock of Ages is a really good soundtrack. I like that movie. It's fun. It's funny. It's easy to watch. It's it's Alec Baldwin and oh my god, how can I not think of his name? British comedian.
I mean, there's a lot of them, man.
No, he's off the wall. He's in Get Him to the Greek.
Oh, Russell Brand.
Russell Brand. Yeah, him. That's Rock of Ages. It's just like the music is pretty much 80s like hair metal and stadium rock. One, just to kind of stick on that music theme, The Boat That Rocked. It's in some countries it's called Pirate Radio, but The Boat That Rocked. I love that movie and I love that soundtrack.
Well, that's even a true story, right? That's not just a concept. That was a real thing. Because it was pirate radio, and they had a boat and they'd just be out on international waters, broadcasting back to the UK.
Yeah, I think it was Radio Caroline up in the north, based up in the North Sea. The ship. I think that's what it's loosely based on. There's some big names in that as well, like really big names in that, which is so good. And there's only 2 movies ever that I've come out of the cinema and said I want to watch that again immediately, and that's one of them.
Go on, don't tease us. What's the other one?
I don't want to say it because it's kind of like it's just bad. I'm like, oh, why did I want to watch that immediately again? I did at the time, and I still love the movie, but I wouldn't watch it like twice in a row anymore. It was the first Avengers movie.
Oh, dear.
I know. That's why I didn't want to say
it. You got The Boat That Rocked, and then Avengers. You do know that there are so many other films out there that are way better than that. I
know, but I think it's just wherever I was at the time, and I was just like, I was looking forward to the Avengers, and yeah, I just loved it. One, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention it, because I love it. Remember the Titans. Go check it out. I'm not even going to describe it. It's just phenomenal. It deals with racism. It has a phenomenal soundtrack, and there's American high school football in it, and Denzel Washington. And Ryan Gosling when he was younger and not in like Drive.
I will say though, Drive is an incredible film as well.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet.
Oh mate, it's so good. It's one of those films where again it's unusual because it's a full length sort of 90-minute film. Ryan Gosling is the lead, the star in it, and he maybe has 5 lines in the whole film, and it is captivating. It's incredible. It's really good performance from him. And Bryan Cranston is in it, the guy who was in Hal in Malcolm in the Middle, or obviously Walter White in Breaking Bad. He's in it as well as one of the sort of secondary characters, and he puts in a great performance as well.
Cool. Have you ever, and this is going to be based, my point of view anyways, on the Harry Potter movies, which we didn't mention, which are obviously huge. We don't need to describe those. But have you ever like read a book of a movie and thought that like either the movie was 100 times better or the book was 100 times better? I know a lot of people out there, and let us know, guys, about books that are definitely 100 times better. There's a lot of people who will always say that, but in some instances I preferred the movie to the book, especially within the Harry Potter franchise.
Oh wow, no, I'm the opposite on that. I prefer the books to the films.
Like 6 out of the 7 books I much preferred, but like my least favorite book was the second one, The Chamber of Secrets, and that's actually one of my favorite movies out of the whole thing.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, and vice versa then with the Prisoner of Azkaban, the third one. I didn't like that movie at all compared to the rest of them, but I loved the book. It's probably like top 2, maybe top 3 out of the 7 for my books.
Well, I've got one that springs to mind just because I'm actually reading the book at the moment.
Oh?
And that is American Psycho.
Ah.
Yeah, and I much prefer the film. And the reason for that is the book, in order to try and really purvey the psychopathic mindset, so it's written in the first person, so you're inside the guy's mind, as he's telling the story of his life and stuff. But for 23 hours out of the day, he's this sort of high-rolling stockbroker type, Wall Street type figure who's constantly eating, in high-end restaurants with like loads of super flashy people and stuff, spending loads of money, and he really cares about his appearance and his brands and everything he wears, and to try and get across that sort of societal or sociological defect that he has, it focuses in on every little tiny detail, and so a majority of the book is just spent explaining the minuscule details of the buttons on his shirt and the noise that this lady's high heels make and how it annoys him and stuff. And it really sets the scene as his sort of mindset and stuff, but it makes for really dull reading.
Yeah.
Because it's just described, because for a normal person it is dull, For someone who's not psychopathic and doesn't fixate so much on that stuff like that, it's not interesting, and it's a weird one because it does what it's intending to do in the sense it really gets that point across, but at the same time it really turns me off the book because it's just it's not an interesting read.
Yeah.
And then the scenes that for me are interesting when he's executing his psychopathic killing, wishes or whatever, which are incredibly graphic. Like the descriptions are disgusting. The descriptions of the way he kills people are far more graphic than in the film. So that part of the book is in my opinion, better. Because it really gets that sort of feeling of disgust that you would have. It really comes out in the book, but you have to wade through pages and pages and pages and pages of just dull description of inane things, which in a movie is easier to kind of show without spending, hours getting that point across, and that's why I prefer the film to the book.
All right, guys. So I hope you enjoyed us chatting stuff about movies, and we covered quite a range of stuff there. There's so much more out there. We could, or other people more qualified than us could talk for days on movies and that kind of stuff. But we just wanted to get some of the stuff out that we enjoy, and you can now get on to all the social media stuff and start slating us for not having seen some of the big movies. or send us your recommendations of stuff that we should do, just regular or any of the foreign language ones, or like foreign language to us anyway. And now I hear you ask, yes, I want to do that. How do I do that? Well, the best way to do it is to hit us up on Twitter. If you go on there, search for @TheBP Podcast. Follow us there. We're very active on there, and it's not just us. There's a lot of other podcasts that we have great interactions with. But yeah, search for us @TheBP Podcast. Follow us there. I'm on Twitter as well, personally, @OCRCove. That's OCRCOVE. That's me also on Instagram. That's just me being shameless. Find us on Facebook. You can do, just search for the Bottomless Pit Podcast. We're also on SoundCloud, the Bottomless Pit Podcast, wherever you get your podcasts as well. I use an app called Podcast Addict. I find it works really good. But that could be via iTunes, Stitcher, Acast, Google Play in some parts of the world. Search for the Bottomless Pit Podcast and you'll see a nice green logo. That is us. Click on us, subscribe, give us a listen. Rate, review, share it with your friends and family and your dogs and your cats, because they're all active on Instagram these days. And hit us up. Let us know what you think about it. We're trying to grow here, and we appreciate all the help that you guys can do. If the 140, or if you're lucky, the 280 characters on Twitter aren't enough for you, if you can't fit in your message to @TheBP Podcast on Twitter, you can email us. The address is bottomlesspitpodcast@gmail.com. It's straightforward, bottomlesspitpodcast@gmail.com. And I think that's all of the social things that I have to do today. We really appreciate you guys out there. We love all the interaction that you're having with us and that we get with you. We always listen to whatever anyone has to say, whether it be good or bad. And if you want us to talk about something, as I said, guys, we're the Bottomless Pit Podcast. There's not too many things that we won't talk about. So hit us up. But until next time, catch you then. Bye-bye.